good with you? Back in black with another Delta Force video. If you guys are new to the channel and you love shooting games just like me, make sure you aim for that like button and shoot that subscribe button as well. Quick question, have you guys ever played a Battlefield game and found yourself repeatedly getting blown up by a tank, maybe just to get revived by a friendly medic to get blown up again 5 seconds later? Or perhaps you have been the victim of multiple flybys from a little bird with a minigun or an Apache with 40mm cannons which are seemingly inescapable. Maybe you've been the victim of a Jeep that drives around in the back lines with a machine gun just killing you and harassing your team while they drop off enemy teammates who proceed to capture the point while your team is getting rolled in breakthrough. All of these things that I described recently are negative experiences which will be had by you if you don't get yourself acclimated with the engineer class. The reason I say that, and something that I definitely want to applaud Delta Force for, is that they have made each class, particularly the engineer for this video, feel like almost a vital aspect of playing, generally speaking. Before, I remember in old Battlefield games, you didn't necessarily have to play the role with the rocket launcher in order to deal with tanks in an effective manner, but again, I can say for sure in this game, quite frankly, if you don't have a rocket launcher, you're going to have a bad time when it comes to dealing with any type of vehicle for that matter, unless it comes to the ATV. And to Delta Force's credit again, I do want to say I think the vehicles in this game are quite powerful, especially when used correctly, or at least when the driver and the gunners are actually good at the game. Aside from the ATV, because that vehicle in itself is just, I think it needs like a redesign. It's way too slow for how small and how vulnerable you are when actually using it. So something to definitely take a look at, but that's another topic for another video. Again, I say all that to say that the other vehicles are essentially impervious to small arms fire, which again, kind of in a sense, forces your hand to switch over to the engineer class if you want to deal with them in any meaningful regard, unless you're just going to rely on your teammates to do that, which is not something that I would necessarily recommend. I might be a little overzealous when I say this, but I don't think it's too far-fetched of a claim to state that if at least 25% of your team does not consist of engineers, your team is more than likely going to lose the game, or at least be in a very rough spot, generally speaking, because I think Delta Force players are starting to get to a point where they realize how powerful the vehicles are, especially on the one map where I find this to be most apparent, which is Ascension. That entire map is susceptible to ground and air attacks from both types of vehicles, and I wish I could say the same thing about the other maps in this game, but I just generally don't find that to be the case, nor do I find vehicles to be super prevalent on any map aside from Ascension. So I don't know, maybe another thing that they could take a look at. It kind of makes me wonder why they even put boats in the game if they're only going to be used for like an intro section of the map and then never seen again on any other map. But I don't know, I just feel like they wasted a little bit of dev time, but I'm going off on a tangent, forgive me. As an engineer, not only are you the main way to deal with enemy vehicles, but you're also the only one who can repair vehicles on your team as well. I've noticed in most games when I play Delta Force that engineers typically don't take the time to whip out their repair tool when they see a vehicle in a vulnerable spot and, you know, give them some repairs, and nor do I see anything on the command wheel that even lets you ask for repairs if you're in a vehicle. So I don't know if that's something that's like a work in progress, but just a way to ask for repairs, generally speaking, and maybe put like a wrench icon above the vehicle if it is in need of repairs. Could be a nice little UI or a quality of life feature for anybody who does want to play this class. Something to look into. In my personal experience, what I have noticed in most games is that engineers typically don't take the time to use the repair tool, and anybody who ends up driving a vehicle ends up in a situation where they're just hanging around the supply station just to, you know, preserve their life with the vehicle because they cost a lot of points and they're not necessarily always in abundance, or they just abandon the mid-gunfight if they end up in a spot where they know they're going to get blown up, which is basically a waste of points for that person and a waste of a vehicle for your team where it could have been used more effectively to, you know, get some results as far as like capturing a point or whatever the case may be. So using your repair tool often and just keeping an eye out on vehicles that actually need some assistance is something that could also bode very well for your team if you're going to play this class. And something that I have noticed as well, generally speaking, with Delta Force, is the team that uses their vehicles or has more vehicles at the end of the day is more than likely the team that's going to end up winning. So I say that to say that as an engineer, yes, you want to use your rocket launcher as often as possible to blow up the enemy vehicles whenever you see them. But in the same vein, you want to make sure you keep your team's vehicles alive because, again, whichever team has the most vehicles is more than likely the team that's going to win because the vehicles are balanced in such a way that they're a pivotal, I wouldn't say necessary, but definitely a very pivotal thing that can swing the game in your favor. I say all that to imply that however powerful the vehicles are designed to be in a given game, and however efficiently a team can utilize those vehicles will definitely scale to how equally important it is for your team to play the engineer class or at least have a good composition of engineers on your team, generally speaking. And I bet that a lot of you would notice that when a team is lacking in rocket launchers or people who can use rocket launchers, that's usually the team that ends up losing, since constantly getting blown up by something you don't have anything in your kit to deal with is very bad for team morale overall. And for some odd reason, I've noticed that Delta Force players, instead of switching over to get a good composition of engineers, they will just stick to whatever class they are playing and then just let the loss play out however the loss is going to play out, instead of adjusting or being adaptable, for lack of better words. Because just because you choose a certain class at the beginning of a game doesn't mean you have to stay as that class for the entire game. So again, just something that I wanted to note or point out. As far as like how I generally go about playing the engineer class, I highly want to advise finding one medic or a group of medics that you can stick by. It doesn't matter if they're in your squad or not, but the reason that this does matter is because you basically have no means to heal yourself as an engineer, but in the same vein, they have no way to deal with basically any type of vehicle. So that synergy that is created between you staying by your medic is what they can use to keep you alive, and then what you can use to actually destroy the vehicles that are bearing down on your team. Not only will the medic keep you alive, which will make the game less frustrating to play when it comes to using the engineer class, he can also provide you with ammo, which will replenish your rocket launcher, which I reckon very often you will be running out of ammo with your rocket launcher when it comes to fighting those vehicles, because they usually take like 2, 3, or 4 rocket launchers if you're fighting them by yourself. If on the flip side you and other engineers are fighting one vehicle at the same time, you will notice that they will basically get dispatched in like a flash. Even the beefy tanks, if you and another engineer are both shooting at them at the same time, you can basically get them out of there in like 5-10 seconds. But that type of coordination is very rare unless you're playing with friends or like in an actual squad using headsets. But even then, if you just stay by other medics and you stay in tune with other engineers on your team and pay attention to what they're shooting at, is something that you can get to happen more often, which will again benefit your team greatly. The more you can get rid of their vehicles and the more you can keep yours alive, the better overall. The only other way to play with this class is to hang around or inside the vehicles themselves. Obviously, when you're playing inside the vehicle, you'll be more in tune with the actual health and you'll know when to hop out to do some repairs yourself or just to get out of the situation, generally speaking, because you get blown up when you have bad drivers very often. But yeah, playing around the vehicles, not necessarily inside them, you can still kind of keep tabs on what their health is like. And then if you and a vehicle on your team are both shooting at a vehicle at the same time in the same vein as like 2 engineers shooting at one vehicle, you guys can get that enemy vehicle out of their way faster. And again, if you keep your vehicles alive and assist them with getting rid of other vehicles, and if you're not going to be in the vehicle yourself, you can also assist with keeping the infantry away from blowing up your vehicle, because the enemy engineers on the other team are going to be trying to do that too. Again, you can do everything in your power as an engineer to contribute to a win for your team. And I think that's just, part of the mindset to have, or one of the best mindsets to have as an engineer. So overall, I do encourage you to familiarize yourself with each operator. I didn't want to get too deep into the actual kit for each engineer operator that's in the game so far, But I more so wanted to focus on the mindset and to remind people to check the scoreboard often to see what the team composition is like. If you notice your team is getting blown up by vehicles very often, it might just be time for you to make that switch instead of being hard-headed and staying on assault or medic or sniper like you're doing right now. And yeah, I mean, if you've never played engineered before, I definitely recommend giving it a chance. And let me know what you think if you found this mindset video to be helpful. I do appreciate you if you have watched thus far. Don't forget to aim for that like button, shoot that subscribe button as well. It'll help you find better teammates, improve your skill-based matchmaking. And yeah, Black Guy out.